We're back talking about layoffs again, and I got something really interesting today. And this is one thing I despise about the United States like crazy. So, one thing I really dislike is when I see a lawyer talk on the news and you watch it for 10-15 minutes and you know exactly the same amount as you did before going into that interview. So, this lawyer came on to the show, and I'm going to have some clippets right here and talking about what does it take to actually for your rights to be not violated when being let go. And I think, oh man, that's going to be a great little segment where he's going to talk about what needs to be met and what not. So let me go into this video, and I'll see you on the other side.
Employees are notified about being laid off. And the reason that I ask is because we hear these horror stories where people say, I was blindsided. I remember a Tesla employee said that she got an email early on Monday morning basically saying, don't come in today. So while that may be considered insensitive, is it against the law? Is it breaking any rules?
It depends on how they receive notice about the layoff that's occurring. And, you have to really step back from the notice that you may receive and determine first, is this an actual layoff? A lot of people that get laid off that are being laid off under certain terms, they're looking at how much notice did they get, what was in the notice that they received. But they're also having to ask, when they received that notice, was there a requirement under federal law that they had to be told in advance that they were being laid off? The Federal WARN Act, that's your Workers Adjustment and Retraining Act that requires notice. People have to be told in advance that if they're going to lose their jobs, what kind of steps can they take in advance to ease that transition? And nothing right now is being seen on the Texas Workforce Commission website about that official notice other than what the CEO put out.
So in some cases, it may not meet that threshold to be considered a mass layoff. But I do want to ask.
Okay, so now you're back, and the thing is that came out to me as like what he said is, oh, we got to first define what a mass layoff is. So it says we have to give notice before we do a mass layoff. But what in terms is a mass layoff, and how do you present it to the workforce? Is the CEO statement good enough? Do you need to do press releases? Do you need to tell everybody individually? So I'm by no means a lawyer. I did take law class in college or university. I did take business law 101, other types of stuff, because I do think everybody should kind of know their way around law a little bit. But when you hear people like this on TV basically saying nothing, we're just filling airtime, is pretty devastating. So, and I just laugh when I hear people online saying that, oh, we need to define. It's just like politics, where they got to define the word. What is a mass layoff? Is it 10%? Is it 12%? Is it 15%? Is it 9%? So we got to go and debate about what is a mass layoff. And for this, the sad part that I despise is that these people that are being let go, that doesn't matter. That does not matter to any of them what a mass layoff is. They couldn't care less. And then they come out and say, oh, like this Tesla employee that, if you watch the full interview, basically said, oh, you're going to have 2 months worth of severance. And let me jump to that video right now, and I'll see you on this other side again.
If you're unfortunate enough to be one of those employees who is laid off, what sorts of rights do you have?
So the big area that people want to look at is what type of notice did they receive under the Federal WARN Act. That's a really popular statute that people will look to first determine if there was any violations. And it's important for people to understand what the WARN Act is, because it'll determine what type of benefits and pay coverage that they'll have for the next 60 days. If companies and employers comply with the WARN Act, they'll have given at least 60 days notice in advance of any layoffs and any kind of mass terminations that will occur for employees. And those employees will be able to kind of project how they're going to transition into new jobs or seek training through the Texas Workforce Commission for those new jobs. But they're insured those benefits, they're insured that pay for the next 2 months. What you saw with Tesla and why lawsuits were filed was because Elon Musk had decided to just pay out employees the minimum amount of benefits and pay that those employees were required to get under the WARN Act. So essentially, you're looking at 2 months of pay, 2 months of benefits.
Okay, so he basically said that 2 months worth of pay with benefits is what, an at-will state. Every state has different laws. Every state has different rules. Kind of is, what they're going about, right? They're like, oh, you got to do 2 months worth of pay with benefits, and then you're kind of in the green. Hey, I really appreciate you watching my video. Please, if you could, consider liking and subscribing. I would love to have more amazing viewers like yourself, and hit that bell notification. So if I ever upload a video, then you can see it right then and there. I appreciate it. So one thing I'm thinking about is, how long does it take these people to find another job, right? So now I'm looking at it like, okay, you get 2 months worth of pay and 2 months worth of benefits. How long does it take you to get another tech job? So I got some numbers right here, and it takes 6 months on average to find another tech job. So you are 4 months without pay, on average, right? That might mean that some people it's going to take 1 month. Some people already got something lined up right when they get let go, and some people it's going to take a year to find something. And this is hugely devastating for a bunch of people that got laid off. And when I read about all these layoffs, and I did a video the other day where like 50,000 people got laid off, and it's just devastating. And the funny part is, from that interview, I do not know anything more than I did before I went into it. So I watched it actually 3 times, and there's nothing there that says, hey, you got to make sure that this and these factors are reached. Like, this is the threshold for this, and if not, you can get more pay. This, you didn't reach this, the company didn't do this, and so there's no, you can't go back to them. So in hindsight, me just thinking out loud is, whatever they say, whatever the company's going to do, you're screwed. So they can let you go and say, oh, it's a mass layoff. We'll pay you 2 months worth of severance and you're out. And good luck. And the only thing smart that he said, oh, you should get a letter of recommendation. Oh, yeah. Wow, that's going to really help me out of finding another job, a letter of recommendation. But besides that, you're really screwed. And what's going on then is like, hey, rent's still due, credit card payments are still due, car payments are still due, and if you're a single provider, like if you're the provider, it doesn't have to be a man, it could also be a woman, right? Or they, them, whatever they want to call it nowadays, is if you are the provider, then, and your wife watches the kids or the husband watches the kids or whatnot, you're going to have a massive gap of 4 months. And depending on how good you are with finances and budgeting, you might not even have that money to do it. Because I'm keep reading articles that are saying, oh, Americans don't have $600 in their checking account to spare that kind of money. So now I'm looking at it like, so what are we going to do with all these people that are getting laid off that still have severance that are not qualifying for unemployment, right? So when Allison got laid off 6 months ago, she did not qualify for unemployment. Unemployment had to be, you had to get unemployment after severance or something like it, because the company paid you, and so you did not qualify. So now these people also don't qualify right away to get unemployment. So they need to actually wait to get the benefits and all that because they're still on 2-month pay, right? And unemployment isn't gonna help them. And I'm gonna tell you why. The unemployment benefits are so small, and I don't know people that actually got it on time because they always are backlogged, right? They're backlogged. And so most likely, let me know if this is just me or if that's actually true with other people that you've seen this, that sometimes unemployment pays you out months after you've submitted everything. And like how the government is, you gotta give me one more document, you gotta give me this, and you gotta give me that, and then they send you the whole unemployment at happened to a friend of mine, in one chunk afterwards, because they were like, oh, you didn't have all these documents submitted on time, so we're not going to pay you when you actually needed the money. So when you actually have the job and you're still working, then they're going to give it to you. and they're not going to give it to you with interest. Like if they're sitting on the money longer, and bonds and all that they're getting from you, and if you're late, they'll tack on all these fees. So when you're late on IRS government stuff, they'll tack on late fees, even DMV, but they're not going to give you any for them to not process it right when you need it. They're not going to give you late fees, right? They're not going to say, oh, we fucked up, we didn't do it right, and so we're going to tack on some late fees. So you're going to get, instead of getting $10,000 over the however long you were, or $6,000-$7,000, however long you're eligible for it, we're going to give you another $2,000 because we were late. Nah, they're not going to do that. And so they're just going to be like, you should just be happy that you got it, right? But it's like, I've paid into that with my taxpayer money when I was making good money, and that is actually a right of mine because I did pay into it. And they're so wasteful with all kinds of other stuff. So why not give these people a really good option when they get laid off, so it eases their stress and mental health? Because we're spending money like crazy on other projects around the globe that we don't need to get involved in. And the people in the US are always the ones that are going to get screwed. So in reference, in Switzerland, when I came out of the military service, so I went into it, and I finished university. I was working part-time, went to university part-time. So it was like full-time work, and, like if you consider school that too. So I was working part-time, went to school part-time, and then I went into the military service, was active duty for an extended period of time. And then after my military service, I was like, okay, I'm finally done with everything. Let me just collect unemployment and just let it ride out a little bit. Let me just do that and go on vacation a little bit and just live off of unemployment. And in Switzerland, the unemployment law is you got to pay in for, I think, 1 or 2 years before you're eligible. And I've paid in while I was doing part-time work for 4 years. And I was doing, during my military service, I also paid in. So when I came out, I didn't want to find a job right this quick. So they said, we're going to give you 80% of your salary that you made in the military up to 2 years, right? That's how long Swiss unemployment is, up to 80% of your salary for 2 years, up to $12,000. So they're not going to pay you more than 80% till that 80% reaches $12,000 a month. So I was like, oh man, I made about $3,000 in the military. So I was like, oh man, I'm going to go travel and do things. And I did. I did that. I went to the US. I traveled through Europe a little bit. And then after about 2 months, my case officer for my unemployment said, hey, it's time for you to sign you up for some courses because we're paying you for your time. So you're going to take some etiquette courses. You're going to take some classes on how to make a resume. And I was like, oh shit, how long are those? And then they're like, oh, each course is a week. You show up on Monday at 8 o'clock and you leave at 5. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, we're just going to monitor you, help you out with your resume. And it's at a school. So you're going to go to a school, like a high school. And they're basically paying the teacher there from the government to help you out with your resume. And they're going to talk to you about etiquette, and you're going to apply to a few jobs. And the only way out of it is you're going to have to get a job or have a doctor's note that you can't make it. And no doctor in Switzerland is going to sign that to you, that you're sick and can't make it, because then you just postpone it a week. So I was like, oh shit. So I feel like I got busted, and I did not want it to go to these events where you got to be in school for the same amount of time as a job would take you. And so then they're like, oh, we got a bunch of programs. We got language programs. We can, we got other courses for you. And I was like, oh shit. So now I was like, okay, I need to find a job. And then I found one in about 2 weeks. And then they're like, hey, we're paying you, so you got to do something. You got to go get a job. So I did that and was unemployed for 2 months. And then it was so uncomfortable of being on unemployment that it just wasn't worth it. And in Switzerland, they have contracts with the city and other places where if you have somewhat of the qualities or the skills, they're like, oh, somebody with your skill set, we found a job for you. So you didn't even need a resume. So you can just go work there and you got to sign in and do stuff. And if that's not great, we're just going to stop paying you. So that's one way of helping people out, because then you're employed by the city and you're going to do crazy things for the city, like pick up trash. You're going to, I don't know what they're going to, what kind of programs they got now. But back when I did it about 10 years ago, they had like, oh, you can go clean up the city you can clean up the railroad tracks and we'll pay you, and you can do all kinds of stuff that you can do. And I feel like those are things that the US could do, but not for tech jobs, right? Not for people that had expensive tech jobs making 6 figures. So just crazy how this whole thing kind of came about with getting laid off and you actually have no rights. And you're like struggling to kind of figure it out. And some people might say, oh, that's because Switzerland's like, is in the EU, it's a socialist place. No, it's actually not. But we just have stuff where we don't want to let people fail, but we also don't give them the option to really, really excel and build their own dreams and kind of live this gorgeous life in the United States as we do right now. So that comes with responsibilities. But the consequences of all this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous land, all this gorgeous work and all this stuff that you can do comes at a price. And I don't know quite yet if that hefty price tag that we're paying with all these tech layoffs is going to be worth it at the end, because they had no protection. And how are these all going to find new jobs? So I haven't figured that one out yet. So let me know in the comments below, and let me know what you guys think about this whole layoffs with the lawyer thing.